At first, when I saw this on the Iceberg, I thought this was clearly a joke entry, but to my surprise, it's actually not. I promise I'm not delusional. Oh yeah, this right here is the good stuff. So, I think this one might just be my favorite so far. Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to another episode of the definitive Persona Iceberg. Today we're going to be covering tiers 6 and 7. If you're new to the series, I highly recommend you go back and watch some of my older videos on this iceberg. That will explain how I went about making this iceberg. And obviously, there's a spoiler warning on this video as well. I'll try to leave the timestamps in the description, so if you feel like you're going to get spoiled, you can skip ahead using that. With that out of the way, get comfy, relax, and please enjoy the video. For the first entry of the 6th tier, we have Akechi and Futaba are half-siblings. This is in reference to a theory posted on Persona 5 subreddit 8 years ago that states Akechi and Futaba share the same father in Shido. The reasons given for this are the fact that Futaba's father isn't present, whereas Akechi's mother isn't present either. And both of them were out of wedlock. It's also possible that Wakaba and Shido knew each other through the field of cognitive science, and the two share some, albeit loose, similarities in their design and personality. Overall, while there's not a ton of evidence to support this one, it's definitely possible, and honestly, I kinda like it. Next, we have TMS is Persona 4.5. Tokyo Mirage Sessions FE, or TMS for short, is a JRPG that released back in 2015 on the Wii U as a collaboration between Atlus and Intelligent Systems, as a crossover between the Fire Emblem series and the Shin Megami Tensei series. This game apparently has a lot in common with the Persona series, both theme and gameplay wise. For example, Mirages, which are basically this game's version of Personas. So due to their similarities, some have domed TMS Persona 4.5. Next we have FOH. I have no idea what this could be in reference to. There's an old forum post 12 years ago talking about how Persona 4 Golden is going to release in 4 more days. There's also FOE, which is a special type of shadow that only appears in the Q series. Again, sorry for not being able to find anything on some of these entries. I think some of them are just too broad. Next we have Joker in the Sonic movie. At first, when I saw this on the Iceberg, I thought this was clearly a joke entry, but to my surprise, it's actually not. In the beginning of the Sonic movie, during the intro, Sega does this little thing where they pan out and show a bunch of clips of games they own, and for a split second, you can actually see Joker show up. As Sega owns Atlus, which means Sega has the rights to Persona. There's also this limited edition Joker Sonic that appeared as a character in the fan-made game Sonic Reloaded. They kind of give me Sonic 2 vibes. Anti-Vax Nanako. Nanako from Persona 4 is voiced by Karen Strassman in the English dub of the game, as well as many other characters you might know about. Karen Strassman in recent years has come under some controversy due to her support for Republican candidate Donald Trump, as well as her stance against vaccinations and the support for other right-leaning ideologies. Since then, Anti-Vax Nanako has become a meme, and honestly, I think this one might just be my favorite so far. Akechi Palace. In the files for Persona 5, there exists unused dialogue boxes that would have been shown during a holdup in a potential Akechi Palace. But as we all know, Akechi doesn't have a palace in the final version of the game. So why was it cut? The answer is, no one really knows. After all, it seems like a guy like Akechi would definitely have a palace. And honestly, who's to say he didn't have one? He basically dies not long after we find out about his true identity, so what if we just never had enough time to steal his treasure? And obviously, the most likely answer is time restraints and the production of the game. It's possible developers just ran out of time to have Akechi's palace in the game, or the idea was scrapped because they didn't want to bloat the game with even more palaces than it already has. P5 Arena. A lot of people want a Persona 5 Arena game. I can't exactly blame them, as the only thing to do after making a game franchise full of lovable characters would be to make a spin-off to have them beat the shit out of each other. Although with the Persona 6 reveal around the way soon, I promise I'm not delusional, hopes for Persona 5 Arena are shrinking. Next, we have Philemon still active. Philemon is a character that played a much more active role in the first 2 Persona games, and if you haven't played those games yet, I'm in the process of making a video on why you should. So comment and hit the bell notification button if you think that'd be something you're interested in. Anyways, Atlus has confirmed that Philemon still plays a pretty big role behind the scenes on the newer Persona games, as it's him who leads the MC throughout the game in the form of the Blue Butterfly. Some people think he'll play a larger role in Persona 6, but I doubt that. Because as I said before, Atlus will do everything they can to distance themselves from the first 2 Persona games as far as possible. Persona Alternate History. As I covered before, Persona is a spin-off of the SMT series, and shares a canon with the Devil Summoner games, which means that Persona takes place in the same alternate timeline as Devil Summoner. I found the best version of the whole timeline that I could, and yeah, I'm not even gonna try to understand what that means. I'm sure other YouTubers are willing to do it. I just have to go to school and shit. Next, we have P3 Beta. Over the years, Atlus has released some of the concept art and early gameplay footage for the original release of Persona 3. Most interesting to me was the changes in design for some of the characters. Yukari gets long hair, Junpei gets a new hat, and almost every main character gets some sort of change in their design. Persona is anti-religion. People have talked about whether Persona is anti-religious or not. Here's an image of this old Talk Jesus forum post that I thought was really funny and obviously fake. Honestly, stuff like this makes me glad Persona wasn't as big in the States back when I was growing up as it is now. I mean, we already had it hard enough with Pokemon being demonic. Imagine if they got to look at Persona back then. I mean, honestly, they probably would have been right about most of it, though. For what it's worth, as someone who is religious, I've never really been offended by anything from a Persona game. After all, the game is based on Jungian psychology, and Jung was far from being an atheist. Jack Frost is canon. I mean, yeah, obviously Jack Frost is canon. He's like in every Persona game. But have you ever stopped to think about the fact that Jack Frost not only exists as a shadow, but as dolls and toys within the Persona universe? What would the implications of this be? Is the whole metaverse and TV world and Dark Hour just a creation of big Jack Frost to sell more Jack Frost dolls? Adachi breaks free. Adachi doesn't break free, at least in any canon way, to the Persona series. He does sort of get out in Persona 4 Arena, in which he gets pushed through a TV again, but this is only for that game, and he goes back in at the end of the game anyways. There's also some instances of people spamming his name in chat or whenever Persona's mentioned anywhere online. It kind of reminds me of the way animals will call out to each other in order to locate each other. It's kind of cute, honestly. Akechi and Sumire rap model. I already talked about this one in the last video. Elizabeth looking for Makoto. In Persona 4, it's revealed that Margaret is actually the sister of Elizabeth from Persona 3, who has left the Velvet Room in search for the Persona 3 protagonist Makoto. Margaret says that even if it takes eons, she will accomplish her mission, which is kind of disappointing. Like, come on, I just want to see what happens. Tying it back into Persona 5 Arena, which I covered earlier, some people think Makoto will finally return once Elizabeth finds him. And I think it's official, Persona fans are the most delusional fan base in the world. Each cycle is a new playthrough. I couldn't really find any information on this. I think it might be in reference to the fact that some people think New Game Plus is somehow canon, and my question is like, why? Like, even if it is, why does that matter? Other than that, this entry is just too generic for me to say what it's referencing 100% certainty. Next is Naoto as a Kuzunoha. Naoto's full name in Persona 4 is Naoto Kuzunoha, which means that she's directly related to Raido Kuzunoha from the Devil Summoner games. They also have pretty similar designs to one another. I understand most people probably wouldn't know this, but I don't know if it belongs this far down the iceberg. Persona 0. I mean, I don't really know what to say for this one, except that sometimes SMTF and Devil Summoner and the SMT series as a whole kind of gets referenced as Persona 0 due to being Persona's predecessors. Persona 4 alignments. Again, I feel like this is super vague. Anyways, there is this thing called the morality alignment chart, and it's been used in series like SMT to decide what kind of ending the player gets. Persona doesn't really have this kind of feature, however. Technically, there is a bad and a good ending, but I wouldn't really say it has anything to do with alignment specifically. It could also be a reference to these Persona alignment charts people love to make. And lastly, it could honestly just be a misspelling of ailment, as one of the search results I got for Persona 4 alignment was a list of status ailments in the game. P5 on Vita. I guess people really wanted Persona 5 to come out on the PS Vita, and it's pretty obvious as to why that never happened. The PS Vita is considered to be a failed console, having only sold about 16 million units. Not only that, but Persona 5 is a massive game and a significant graphical upgrade since the last mainline installment. Despite this, it looks like some people were able to homebrew their way onto a PSP version of the game with only a few downgrades. Next, we have hidden/cut endings. As I've talked about before, each Persona game has a few different endings, and while I couldn't find anything specific about certain endings being cut, it is interesting to think about how things would have turned out differently. Aigis, the first mission. Oh yeah, this right here is the good stuff. So, Aigis, the first mission is a mobile game that originally released back in 2007 on select mobile devices. The original version of the game is considered to be lost media because it's impossible to download now even if you have a compatible phone. However, just recently it was released on Steam. Apparently, there's plans for an English translation as well, so when that happens, I'll definitely be playing it and might even make a video on it. Naoto Manga. If you didn't know already, there's a non-canon Naoto manga that takes place after the events of Persona 4 and Persona 4 Dancing that was made by the people who made Persona 3 and Persona 4 mangas. Nazi anime girls. I don't know why this is on the list. There are Nazi anime girls, just not in Persona. I've come to realize that these lower tiers are really hit or miss. You get stuff like Aigis the First Mission, which is really cool, relatively unknown topic concerning the Persona series, and then you get Nazi anime girls. Etrian Odessey 4 Leftovers and PQ. So something I didn't even realize is that the Persona Q games are based on the Etrian Odessey games and are even made by the same developers. Honestly, I didn't even know what Etrian Odessey was until researching for this video. But it makes sense that if you had two games similar enough to each other made by the same people, some of the assets would be reused. Factor of Hope. Factor of Hope is the name of the Persona 4 movie that is pretty rare and only released in the 10th volumes of the Japanese DVD release of the anime, as well as shown in some movie theaters. It's basically the 26 episodes of the anime, but recut to fit in 90 minutes. And at the end of the movie, there's a scene with Makoto teasing a Persona 3 movie. Persona 5 Reverse Social Links. In the files for Persona 5, there exists unused data for a doubt mechanic that would have featured similarly to the reverse social link mechanics of past games. I'm actually kind of glad this wasn't a thing, as accidentally getting the wrong answers and having a social link reversed is really annoying and honestly just encourages players to use a manual even more. But did you know that in Persona 3, social links were originally designed to be locked forever if they became reversed? Imagine getting broken up with in real life, only to have Yukari break up with you in the game. Sheesh. Persona 5 is going to be darker. More files hidden in Persona 5 show that the game was originally designed to be a lot darker, with an alternate interrogation scene that shows the police going a lot harder on you than in the base game. Not only that, but as we talked about before, Persona 5 has a ton of unused content that makes it seem like Persona 5 was supposed to be even darker than what it was. C's in P5. While C's from Persona 3 didn't make an appearance in Persona 5 outside of references here and there might actually be a lore reason for this. As in Persona 4 Arena, it's explained that C's did detect shadow activity coming from Inaba, but had no way of accessing the TV world. In the same sense, even if Fuka did notice shadow activity, there's nothing C's could do without the metanav. Shido is Shinzo Abe. Shido, the main antagonist in Persona 4, and the person who basically kickstarts the entire game by having you kicked out of school, is very similar to the real-life Japanese politician Shinzo Abe. Not so much in appearance as more in personality and political ideas. Shinzo Abe was a conservative party leader and served twice as prime minister before being assassinated in 2022. P6 will be green. Probably. P3 novels. There exists a number of novels that released based on the characters of Persona 3, most notably this one about Akihiko Sanada, and it takes place a month before the events of the main story. It expands on some of the other characters, as well as like Yukari and Shinjiro. Overall, I think it's pretty obscure due to its age and lack of English translation. And lastly, we have Port Island is Kobe. I've talked about this in previous episodes, but if you didn't know, Port Island of Persona 3 is based on real-life island of Kobe in Japan. And that does it for this video. I hope you all enjoyed. Sorry I couldn't find all the information on some of these entries. A lot of these definitely seem to be hit or miss. Sometimes you'll get something really cool, like Aigis the first mission, and sometimes you get P6 will be green. I have no idea why that's this slow in the Iceberg. Also, at the time I'm writing this, school is about to begin, which means that I'm going to be a lot busier. Uploads will probably slow down to once a week, again, like originally planned, which might be a good thing because between you and me, I'm going pretty hard in the paint making these videos, and I really want to avoid burnout as much as possible. But anyways, I hope you all enjoyed. If you did, remember to hit that like button, comment down below what you'd like to see next, subscribe if you want to see more content like this, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace.